In today's video, I'm going to show you how to make this most adorable Halloweenie pumpkin beanie. Now, you've got a couple of ways you can approach this. You can add a face, which gives it that fantastic jack-o'-lantern look, which is perfect for the season. Or you can just leave it plain and just go with a traditional pumpkin look. It's really up to you. Now, in this tutorial, I'm going to get you started with the basic beginning instructions. And then once those are complete, because that's basically the instructions for every size beanie I'm going to offer, then after that, I'm going to give you further instructions on how to complete each beanie according to the size of beanie you're making. So basically, I'm going to have a baby size, a toddler size, a child size, and then an average adult size. And that's going to make any kid of any age in the running for having one of these silly toppers during this beautiful fall season. Okay, so let me give a warm welcome to all my Weaving Weird siblings, weirdlings, and just fun people. For those of you who aren't in the know, my name is Sig. I am a retired tattoo artist turned active fiber artist and crocheter. And here on my channel, you and I get to create a little magic with every knot. So don't forget to hit the subscribe and like buttons. This doesn't cost you anything, but it does help me provide you with regular tutorials featuring original designs, classic patterns. So this is a little bit of a cross between an original design and a classic pattern. And then, of course, lacy motifs. I'm always interested in your feedback, so feel free to leave your comments and questions below. And also, I'd like to thank you all who do leave your questions and your comments below. It's super helpful, and I do like hearing from you. Okay, so with all that said and the housekeeping out of the way, let's just go ahead and get started. So let's start going through the items you will need to complete the Halloweenie pumpkin beanie project. First, you're going to want a hook. I'm using an F hook, basically a 3.75 millimeter. Now, this hook is going to be perfect for the size of yarn that I am using for this tutorial, and that is a DK weight or a light worsted, or as some people might know it as a weight 3 yarn. Also, you're going to want to have, it doesn't really matter, a yarn needle or a tapestry needle, whatever it is you use or have on hand in order to weave in your tails. In this tutorial, I do recommend a stitch marker. You really only need the one. And then, as usual, a pair of scissors. Now, before I show you the yarn I'm using and give you a little more information on that, I just want to simply remind you that you use whatever yarn you like in the colorway you happen to like or happen to have on hand. It's all up to you. You are the creative here. I am just here to kind of show you how I do things and hopefully inspire you through these tutorials that I give you. The only caveat for this particular tutorial is that your yarn is a light worsted, a weight 3, or a DK weight. These 3 weights are all pretty much the same size, different ways to describe the same weight and thickness of the yarn I am using for this project. So this orange yarn I'm using is a discontinued yarn, I'm pretty sure. And it's Aldine Wools by Knit Crate. It's from their Sleek collection, and the colorway is Bliss. Now, this particular yarn is going to be a 55% fine merino wool, 30% baby alpaca, and 15% mulberry silk. I don't know that this matters to you, but I will let you know anyways that it comes in 100-gram skeins, and for each 100-gram skein, you're going to get about 220 yards of yarn. Now, the next yarn I'm going to be using for the stem of my Halloweenie pumpkin beanie is this kind of unique yarn right here. Now, this yarn is alpaca yarn, and I don't have a brand for it in particular because I bought this from a woman who is in the early parts of learning how to spin wool. And so this is yarn that she spun herself. I love the colors. I think it'll make a great stem. And as you can see, this is pretty much exactly the same weight that I am looking for. It is really very much a DK weight. Maybe a little smaller than a DK weight, but close enough for government work. So as mentioned before, I have several sizes that I'm going to make available to you so that you can make this beanie in pretty much whatever size you'd like to make it, whether it be a newborn to basically an average adult sized head. But they all start off the same way. Each size of these beanies starts off with the first 14 rounds being exactly the same, and this is what I'm going to walk you through. After that, I'm going to give you basically instructions on how to do whichever size you prefer to do, but by then you'll have already figured out exactly what it is that you need to do with the beanies. So following the rest of the instructions without me here showing you the steps isn't going to be a problem. And then of course, once you've finished your beanie, I'm going to give you the instructions. I'm going to walk you through the really simple process of making the stem. Now in terms of the face, I'm not going to show you how to do that. That is something that is all you. You can gather up whatever scrap yarn you have in the colorway you would like to use and simply embroider a face onto your cap if that's what you're looking for. You can hand crochet the shapes separately and then sew those little swatches and shapes on to form a face onto your beanie. Or you can use craft felt, cut out the pieces and the shape that you want in order to create the face that you would like to have, and then sew that onto your beanie. Or you can simply leave it without a face, which is the tutorial today, and just have a simple pumpkin beanie. Okay, so now that we've gone through all that, let me go ahead and show you how to start. Okay, so to begin with, this piece is worked in a spiral. There is no joining. I'm going to begin with a slip knot, and then I'm going to chain 2. And then in my second chain from my hook, I'm going to go ahead and I am going to single crochet 5 single crochets into that chain. So that's 2, 3, 4, and then 5. And that will complete round 1. Now moving on to round 2, I'm simply going to place 2 single crochets into each stitch. So that very first single crochet of round 1, I'm going to place 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. But I'm going to take a moment here to actually put my stitch marker into that very first single crochet of round 2 that I made. And the stitch marker is going to be moved with each new round so that I can keep track of how many rounds I've completed. So again, that's my first 2 stitches. And then my next stitch is going to be 3 and 4. And then 5 and 6. 2 stitches in each of the stitches from round 1, giving me a total of 10 stitches to complete round 2. So now that's 8. And then we've got 9 and then my 10th stitch. Now moving on to round 3, I want to place 2 single crochets in each stitch again. So once I've completed round 3, I will have a total of 20 stitches. So again, I'll remove my stitch marker, place my first 2 single crochets into that first stitch, replace my stitch marker back to that first single crochet of round 3, and then I'm going to continue. That's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 17, 18, and then 19 and 20. Now moving on to round 4, I want to simply place a single crochet in each stitch. So at the end of round 4, I will have 20 stitches. That's my first one, 2, 3, 19, and 20. Now for round 5, what I want to do is I want to place 2 single crochets in each stitch. So I'll begin with my first stitch, and I'll replace my stitch marker, that first single crochet, round 5. Now for round 5, since I'm placing 2 stitches in each of the single crochets, I'm going to end up with a total of 40 single crochets when I've completed round 5. So I got my first 2, 3, and 4, then 5, 6, 38, 39, and 40. Now we're going to move on to rounds 6 and 7. And for rounds 6 and 7, I'm simply going to place a single crochet in each stitch. So when I've completed round 6 and round 7, I will end with 40 single crochets for the round. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to begin with my first single crochet of round 6. I'm going to place my stitch marker back there, and then I'm going to continue. I will meet you right back here after I've completed round 7. Now that I've completed round 7, I'm going to move on to round 8. Now for round 8, I'm going to begin a pattern, and the pattern is going to be a repeat of this. So I'm going to have 2 single crochets in the first stitch. And then a single crochet in the stitch after that. And I'm going to repeat that pattern 20 times. So 2 single crochets in the next stitch and a single crochet in the stitch after that. And so now I'm going to repeat this pattern 18 more times. And when I've completed round 8, I will have a total count of 60 stitches. $59 and 60. Now, the next thing we're going to do, now that round 8 is completed, I'm going to move on to round 9. And rounds 9 and 14, or rather, rounds 9 through 14 are all going to simply be the same thing. They're just going to be repeats of themselves, and it's basically going to be a single crochet for each stitch. So for each round from 9 to 14, you're still going to end with a total count of 60. And I will meet you right back here after I've completed the next rounds. So now once you've finished round 14, you should have a piece that looks like this. Everyone's piece should look like this, no matter what size you're making at this point. Now going forward, I'm going to show you a list of sizes, and each size is going to have the instructions you need to continue to follow to acquire that particular size. And then we'll move on to making the stem. Now, once you've finished crocheting your beanie to the size that you want, you're going to have your basic beanie. And then I went ahead and I put on my face. And you will too, if that's what you want. Again, craft felt works perfectly. You can just embroider the face on, or you can just simply crochet the shapes and then sew those shapes on to create the face of your jack-o'-lantern. Now the next thing we're going to do is to make the stem, the basic topper of our pumpkin beanie. And I'm going to start by using my new yarn, in this case my brown yarn, and I'm going to chain 23. So start with a slip knot and then chain 23. 1, 2, 3, 4, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, and 23. Now the next thing I'm going to do is in the second chain from the hook, I'm going to place 2 single crochets. So 1 and 2. And then in the stitch after that, I'm going to place a single crochet. So 1. So I'm going to repeat that pattern 4 more times. So again, next stitch, 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then a single crochet in the stitch after that. Next, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then a single crochet in the stitch after that. And then 2 more times, 2 single crochets in the next stitch, and then a single crochet in the stitch after that, and then once more, 2 single crochets, and then a single crochet in the stitch after that. Now I'm going to continue with that same pattern, except now I'm going to use half double crochets and I'm going to repeat the pattern 3 times. So 2 half double crochets in this next stitch or chain if you prefer. And then a half double crochet in the chain after that. And then in the next chain, 2 half double crochets into that stitch. And then 1 half double crochet in the stitch after that. And we're going to do that one more time with the 2 half double crochets in the next stitch. And then a half double crochet in the stitch after that. Now next, I'm going to work into basically the same pattern, but I'm going to use double crochets. So I'm going to repeat this pattern 3 times with double crochets. So 2 double crochets into the next stitch. And then a double crochet into the stitch after that. Again, 2 double crochets into the next chain. And then a double crochet in the chain after that. And one more time, 2 double crochets into this next chain. And we're going to finish this part up with that last double crochet into the last chain. So far your piece should look like this. And then we're going to move on to the next part of the stitch. So now that I've completed what will be labeled as row 1, the curly Q part of the stem, you can see right here I have the double crochet, and then off the double crochet I have the 2 chains. Now what I'm going to do next is I'm going to simply come here and I'm going to join right here into the very first chain that was created in row 1. So I basically created a little bit of a loop at the base of that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a single crochet in that same stitch. And then or rather about halfway through that double crochet, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to place 2 single crochets into that same halfway mark of the double crochet. So now I have 3 single crochets. And then in the next top part of the double crochet, I'm going to place a single crochet. So that'll give me 4. And then in each of the chains, I'm going to place a single crochet. So that'll be 5 and then 6. Okay, so now I have 6 single crochets in my first round, and I'm going to move on to round 2. Now this is where I'm going to break out my stitch marker. So in round 2, I'm going to place a single crochet in each stitch. So when I've completed round 2, I'm going to again have 6 stitches for round 2. It gets a little fiddly, but it'll work out just fine. So I'm going to place my stitch marker in that first stitch for round 2 because I want to start keeping track of my rounds now. Next, it's going to be the second single crochet. 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Next, I'm going to move on to round 3. And for round 3, I'm going to place 2 single crochets in each stitch. And so I'll end with a total stitch count of 12. So this will be my first 2 single crochets in that next stitch. Place my stitch marker. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 12. Now I know it's a little hard to see with this particular yarn because it's a bit fuzzy, but I think you can kind of already get an idea on how that's coming along. So rounds 4 through 9, basically the next 6 rounds, you're simply going to single crochet in each stitch. So you're still going to end up with a total of 12 stitches at the end of rounds 4 through 9. I'm going to go ahead and get that started, and I will meet you right back here when I've completed round 9. Ten, 11, and 12. So now once you've completed your 9th round, your piece should look something like this. Don't be afraid to tighten up your curl a little bit, give it a little help in the direction it's supposed to go once you've completed it and if you need to. So this is what your stem looks like so far. And now we're going to move on to round 10. Now for round 10, basically going to place 2 single crochets into each stitch. So that'll give us an end count of 24. So I've got my 2, 3, 4, 5, 21, 22, 23, and 24. And then now for round 11, going to single crochet in each one of those stitches. And then once I've completed my 24 single crochets, I'm going to make a slip stitch, and that will leave me with a total of 25 stitches. And this is where I'm going to fasten off. I'm going to leave a nice long enough tail to sew with. So again, it's going to be my first stitch, 1, 2, 24, and then I'm going to make my slip stitch. I'm going to cut myself a tail long enough for sewing. Sorry, this yarn broke. Like I said, she's just learning how to spin, and this yarn is pretty weak for the most part. You have to be gentle with this particular one, but you know, you're going to be using a different yarn. Once it's worked up, it's nice and strong. But yeah, just a little side note. Okay, so now that I have my stem finished, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sew it on the top of my beanie like so. And it will be completed. Once that's all sewn on, you have a very super cute little Halloweenie pumpkin beanie that works up really fast, is super cute, looks perfect on little kids and babies, and delightful on older kids and even adults. So don't forget to check out videos that are similar to this in my playlist if this is a tutorial you like and are interested in. And then with all of that said, until we meet again, stay creative, stay amazing, and always weave your own weird. Bye-bye now.